welcome to another edition of Can't Wait. Sounds terrible. As we record this, there is apocalyptic weather hitting Naperville, where Patrick is, hitting Rachel on the north side of Chicago, producer Grace in a secured location. These could be our last words on Earth, but what a better way to go, team, than to be talking about things that are terrible, than to die a terrible apocalyptic weather death. Weather death, say that 10 times. Again, my last words could be just stumbling over apocalyptic weather death. Let's just repeat what's at stake here. So I mentioned that's Patrick and that's Rachel. Natalie on assignment. Eleni has left the country. If you spot her, please report her to the vodcast authorities and we will track her down. We are sponsored by no one. We're talking to you, Diet Coke and Big Coffee. But fortunately, we are not sponsored by the low-key pivot because that does not seem to be going well in Washington or Springfield. And Springfield, here's some breaking news. We love the sounder. We love the sounder. So Springfield, Rachel, really is a state of mind. And that is a terrible state of mind. It's a terrible place. Even though lawmakers are not at home, Springfield is terrible right now. And the Chicago Tribune editorial board throwing down the gauntlet. Headline in the Tribune on the editorial page, where do Illinois Democrat House candidates stand on Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch? In the hard copy edition, they didn't include the Chris, but it is implied. And the Tribune says, as we creep ever closer to the November 3rd elections, early voting in Chicago begins September 24th. Wow, that's also terrible. A new urgent issue for Illinois Democrats has emerged along with the familiar ones of affordability, housing, tax.
That's what to do about Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch. The speaker is under fire for his handling of serious sexual harassment allegations against now former state rep Harry Benton, Democrat of Plainfield, who's gained much more notoriety as a former state representative than he did as a state representative. Tribune goes on to say, so far avoidance seems to be a popular approach, but it's not one voters should tolerate. Every Democratic candidate for the Illinois House should be prepared to answer two simple questions. Should Welch remain Speaker? And what will you do to strengthen protections against sexual harassment in state government? Now, Speaker Welch is a talented politician, a smart lawyer. But like George Clooney in the Coen Brothers movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And I'm sure Producer Grace, maybe she'll be the next speaker. Producer Grace will find the clip, but he is in a tight spot.
Damn, we're in a tight spot.
He is in a tight spot right now. What can he wriggle out of it, Rachel?
You know, it's never a good position to be in, and Madigan was in this position for years, right? Where candidates would be routinely tied to him and to anything that was alleged to have been done by him for years and years and years. It's not a great place to be in as a leader. Of course, the candidates should be prepared to answer that question. I don't know how they answer the question. He's got a lot of money. They need that war chest, right? I think that's going to play a part here. But in terms of his ability to maintain power, of his ability to retain seats, you know, it's certainly not helpful. It's not where I'd want to be if I were him. And I don't know that any of the things he's done over the last couple of weeks, his media tour last week, have really changed the dynamic for him.
Now, Patrick, presidential candidate and Governor J.B. Pritzker, has he been reelected yet? Did that election happen? I've lost track. Anyway. He's laying some groundwork for something. Crain's Chicago Business reported, Governor J.B. Pritzker says Illinois legislators need to quickly come up with a new sexual harassment policy. And he was answering a question about the working group that Speaker Welch, not to be confused with Speaker Producer Grace, Speaker Welch appointed to come up with a new sexual harassment policy. And here's what the governor said. I believe there doesn't need to be much of a discussion through a working group, Pritzker said. You have to write legislation, or at least write rules in the House, but it is important, in my opinion, for this to happen very quickly. We are not reinventing the wheel here. The nation has figured out how to allow someone to come forward and make sure that they get justice when they've been harassed. The governor is maybe a little bit skeptical about that tactic. What do you think, Patrick?
Well, I'm just glad to know across the country we've solved the issue of staffers being able to get justice if they work in a toxic work environment in a legislature. Because I was just the other day perusing the newspaper, and it seemed like maybe Washington hadn't yet solved that answer, or other state capitals. But I think, to Rachel's point and others that we've previously said, what the speaker has going for him right now is the primary is done. And so it's not going to, and hey, the power has come back on. So we got a lot of positive developments
That
here.
could be God. That could be God weighing in on the podcast.
That is absolutely right. But so without the primary going on, how much of an issue is this, for voters to decide? But we'll have to keep an eye if the tallies begin to rack up for people saying, that they would be, quote, never Welchers or something like that. But we'll just keep an eye on it. But the governor does not want to be associated with anything to do with this going forward, nor should he. And also, most chambers, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, you and Rachel spent a lot more time down there. They're unique in that, like, the laws apply to everywhere else but within the confines of the state assembly or Congress, and they are by nature set, need to establish their own rules and conduct. But generally speaking, they've fallen short over the many years.
And to be
decades.
fair, and I think Rachel has pointed this out in previous broadcasts, the harassment and mistreatment of women and staffers is a bipartisan issue. There are plenty of Republicans who are probably saying, there, but for the grace of God go I. We know a few of them. And in the overall Springfield milieu, outside of the elected officials, the folks that are hanging around the rail, there are more than a few that are probably checking on the statute of limitations for public relations disasters. So this is an issue I think everybody in Springfield would like to see go away, Rachel, and the working group may not be the way to work through that.
I mean, I think we need a working group that's definitely real, right? Kelly Cassidy had some concerns about that. She spoke out about that this week. I think what we want to see, what people want to see, certainly people working in the Capitol, people who are trying to trust legislators who have been given ample reason not to for many, many reasons over the last, number of years here in Illinois, want to see something that's more than performative, something substantial that will actually move the ball.
That's well put. Speaking of performative, what a great segue. And putting a little pressure on producer Grace today, but maybe she'll find the classic clip from the musical group The Weather Girls. And with apologies to the Weather Girls, the humidity's rising, the barometer's getting low. According to all sources, the street's the place to go because it's raining. It's raining. Mayors. We've got another candidate announced, Willie Wilson, running for mayor again, or as the Chicago Sun-Times headline said, back and forth. In fact, I've got that headline right here. Back and forth. There's Willie, the self-made businessman. He spent millions running for office, never got above 10% in his previous runoffs. He also ran once for president as a Democrat in 2016. In 2020, he tried to run for the Senate under the Willie Wilson Party. That was a new party. I'm not sure if it's still around. Plain-spoken guy, colorful quotes, and perhaps lost amid some of those colorful quotes, like I think in one of his recent runs, proposing that he would hunt carjackers down like rabbits. Um, he has been at the vanguard of some issues that you've seen play out in other, perhaps more mainstream political arenas. So he's been pro-police. He wants the shot spotter technology back for the police. Got a little edgier when he called for President Trump to call in the National Guard to fight crime in Chicago last year. He wants to raise police salaries. He wants to eliminate red light and speed light cameras. At least those are previous positions he took. I got clipped by one of those lately. I'm 100% behind that. So now, producer Grace, and this may be too much and it will probably obscure all of our faces, but here are the list of candidates who have announced that we know of at this moment. Please, viewers, let us know who else we've missed. So, we got Alexa Giannoulis, our Secretary of State. We've got Illinois Comptroller Susana Mendoza. We've got U.S. Congressman Mike Quigley. We've got Cook County Board of Review Commissioner George Cardenas. We've got Mayor Johnson, still not announced. Everybody thinks he's going to run. Lobbyist John Kelly. Friend of the vodcast attorney Bill Quinlan is said to be close to pulling the trigger. And then a local Chicago political pollster and pundit, Frank Calabrese, pointed out that U.S. Representative Delia Ramirez, another Democrat of Congress, a far more left progressive, has been included in a recent political survey to which Illinois Playbook host Shia Kapos says her sources tell her that Delia is not running. So that's usually what people say when they're running. I don't know. What do I know? I'm just sitting here collecting all the intel, trying to keep track of all of the candidates. Am I missing anyone, Patrick, that you're aware of?
Don't we have the doctor?
Oh, God. And we talked about her on this show. How could the Sun-Times and I be so insensitive? So we got that doctor, what's her name, who is surgeon.
Great name ID. Tremendous
Yeah,
name ID.
she has tremendous name ID. And she actually recently announced that that Victor Reyes would be helping her campaign, or he recently announced that, unless now he's going to be working for one of these other several candidates. So we'll get that doctor's name later in the broadcast because we want to be fair to all of these folks who are potentially putting their name on the ballot. We shall see. Speaking of whether the governor's race has taken place yet, turns out you both were right. He has not yet been reelected. And apparently, according to Capitol Facts, there was the Illinois Agricultural Legislative Roundtable, which featured Governor Pritzker, his opponent, former state senator Darren Bailey, and Republican U.S. Senate candidate Don Tracy. Democrat Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton was unable to join because she was at another engagement on Martha's Vineyard, Rachel.
Sounds nice.
I hear at the
I might have
summer
skipped for that
parties.
too if I were her. I don't know.
If you got an invite to Martha's Vineyard, you're probably taking it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Democrats there too, from what I recall. Isn't that where the former president and owner of the library on the south side of Chicago, isn't that where he summers? Anyway, hope they have a good time and they swill the Chardonnay. Patrick, some more good news, because we're all about uplifting people, even though we all may die in this vodcast. The Wyndham City Center, formerly known as the Springfield Hilton, known formerly and currently by a lot of names that are not family friendly for us to discuss on this podcast, it appears to be finding a pathway out of bankruptcy with some bids that are due in mid-September. Just to put it in context, and if you've been to Springfield recently, at various times there have been what looks like hazmat crews working on the Wyndham City Center. Yellow police tape. No guests for quite some time now. among the many things that have happened there. There was apparently a major water pipe burst or God knows what. Anyway, wasn't doing well. Springfield, downtown Springfield, not doing well. Back to that state of mind. The property spans an entire city block, and the 31-story hotel tower has 375,000 square feet. The property is valued at $8 million, according to the Springfield Journal-Register. We could all chip in a little bit, folks, and get in on that bidding. The Journal-Register says, I think without any irony, that it is one of the largest hospitality assets in Springfield.
I mean, anyone that's had the joy of vodcasting from downtown Springfield or staying down there at any time can attest it could use some love and appreciation. Since we like to offer predictions, I will suggest that it will take just a matter of months for the idea of a Springfield casino to re-enter the conversation as an attempt to revitalize this 375,000 square foot facility. At which point, all of Illinois' well-heeled lobbyists who each own video gambling establishments in Springfield will suddenly discover that that would be a bad idea, but before they all band together on this bid. So I'm going to predict
predictions.
Yeah, I'm going to predict that we're going to see some resuscitation plan there. But aside from my cynicism, I do hope the hotel gets improved because there is only one way to go, and it is up.
If it's going to cost $8 million, if that's what they're valuing at it, I question how much more than $8 million it will cost to actually do the rehab and to fix it. I stayed there. I suspect I may have been one of the last guests to stay there. I stayed there shortly before it closed in the middle of the summer. It was 100-some degree day. It was terribly, terribly hot. And when I arrived at my room, it was 85 degrees in my room because no one had turned on the AC. I don't know. It took quite some time. And it was late when I got there. I had to turn on the AC and leave for several more hours and come back before it was even remotely somewhere I could sleep. So I suspect the amount of work that needs to be done is probably going to cost more than that $8 million price tag. So
yeah, I think this team's, we've worked on some economic development deals. I will 100% say I'm sure that's what the paper has reported, that it's worth $8 million. I think its demo costs and revitalization there, a dollar might be generous for that, provided they could get someone to actually invest in the property. And let's just hope things are done above board and that someone with the means and a plan to do something meaningful for downtown Springfield happens, because it would be nice to have somewhere nice to stay occasionally close to the Capitol.
That would that would be a step. I think, again, we're all about the positivity. The Wyndham could be better. Springfield could be better. Maybe it will be. And Rachel just happened to be there.
Did you leave like your tub running, Rachel? Were you the cause of this flight?
Did
you? Oh, there were
but
like
it's
you just.
possible that turning on the air conditioning created so much condensation that the hotel flooded because it was a
All
very
that
hot
ice?
day, and
All that
AC
ice?
had to work really hard.
Yeah, you put all the ice from the machine in your tub, and
Yeah.
you were trying to fan yourself 1800 style, and boom.
I mean, maybe I should have. Maybe that would have been more effective than pushing a button on the wall and just hoping for the best.
Apologies to Dr. Lisa Nee, cardiologist. This just in. She is also running for mayor. Well, that sounds like the cue for producer Grace's sad trombones, because it's time for Sounds Terrible. And again, if these are our last days on Earth, it's been nice knowing all of you. It's been nice seeing Patrick in the light and the dark, cast off the darkness, put on an armor of light. Rachel, do you want to start us off with something that sounds terrible? And I apologize to our viewers. I dropped my reading glasses down here, so I'm going to pick them up while Rachel begins our Festivus.
Sure. I mean, other than the weather outside, I see plants tipping over right now on my roof deck. But so I'm going to try and ignore that. No, what I would say is, and this is, I think, going to be this is a parent thing. This is relatable for any and all working parents at this moment. The last couple weeks of summer, when camps are over, and this is my first year having to deal with this because we're going from daycare into school. And school hasn't started yet, and you have to figure out what to do with your kid all day. I don't know how my parents did it. I don't know how most parents do it, but you've got teenage babysitters line up and they flake, and you got to figure out something else, and you gotta make it all happen, and that is just terrible. As a kid, the idea of year-round schooling horrified me. As an adult, I think
What a
I'm seeing it. I
fantastic
get it.
idea.
I get it. So that's my sounds terrible. The fact that we don't have year-round schooling for my almost 4-year-old.
Back before the flood, back to school for my Gen X generation was right after Labor Day. And so to me, the already kind of terrible maudlin experience of watching the Jerry Lewis telethon, which ran every Labor Day until just about the time Jerry died, was always the cue to me to be sad. And summer was over and it was time to go back to Catholic school and putting uniforms on. Patrick, give us some terribleness.
I'm going to go with having to be in the tax compliant department for any of our retailers who are once again subjected to the school tax-free holiday back to school shopping bonanza that everyone in the state is rushing out to at this one limited window, take advantage of the sales tax holiday. And of course, there will be like 8 customers who even know that it's occurring and inducing any type of pay. But of course, if you don't do this correctly, I'm sure the Illinois Department of Revenue will be very kind to you and not harass you and all of these things. But I'm going to still be craven here and say that gimmick doesn't really work anymore. And perhaps we should just work on reducing people's taxes year round because kids need school supplies year round, not just when school begins. So, let's give some tax relief year round, less harassment of tax compliance.
That's a good policy. It's actually probably good policy advice. Not as much of a sounds terrible, more of a typical boring scar kind of.
Yeah, I didn't have my research department was cut off today in advance of this pod by the numerous El Nino inspired tornadoes and power outages that we're suffering through. So that was back to school themed.
Well, apocalyptic weather is my terribleness. And so, because we're all about uplifting our viewers, how do you make the best of apocalyptic weather? And assuming that we all don't die and that producer Grace can get this up on the interweb sometime, the Tribune, once again, Tribune is providing all the answers. They have the solution, the bright, shiny aspect of massive, horrible climate change. Climate migration could be a big boost for Chicago. And it says that Cincinnati is already planning to take part in what they believe will be climate tourism. And they said, why not Chicago? And I'm assuming there was a little tongue in cheek here. For years now, Chicago has been losing ground in the race for population growth. Between 20 and 25, Illinois' population declined by a fraction, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, while Texas and Florida posted 9% gains over the same period. Yet climate change is coming to this retirement hotspot like Arizona's Maricopa County. It's getting a little warm there. So the climate tourism, we've got Lake Michigan, we've got ice cream, we've got Italian ice on Taylor Street. Why not everybody move back to Illinois? Yeah, we got high taxes, and yeah, we've got corrupt politicians, and yeah, some of our politicians are a little bit handsy, but we got the lake, and the weather's going to be better than it is in the rest of the planet, which is on fire. So that sounds wonderful, not terrible, doesn't it?
I'm just glad we got that 20% surcharge on the downtown hotel room, so we can got the resources
We
to
could-
let you know we got the polar vortex. That's a huge opportunity. Rachel is all about
can tap into that.
that big reservoir on 9094. You know, that's a big tour. You know, we already stopped traffic next to it, just so you can get your pictures. So you know, that's actually a branding opportunity. Maybe some folks want to sponsor the big dig. Yeah,
Just wait for the waves of influencers coming in to take that picture.
So here we are, uplifting. We're givers. We do this for you, the viewers. That's another edition of Can't Wait Sounds Terrible for producer Grace and Rachel and Patrick and Natalie on assignment and Eleni on the lam. We appreciate you viewing, and we'll see you next time.